Good morning, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome again to my class. This is research instrument development, and today is going to be the fourth meeting. Yeah, the fourth meeting. In this meeting, I'd like to add something or some additional information about making a questionnaire, as we have already proceeded. I mean, as I told you before, that we have several things about how to make a questionnaire, and today will be the fourth meeting and day 3 in my concepts, and the fourth meeting for you. Today we are talking about the strategies and techniques, the tactics of making questions in a questionnaire. I think you know that we have a kinds of principles. Yeah, there are principles of making question in a questionnaire. Usually this is very important for you to when you start writing down a questionnaire. So first one is you have to see that precise wording of questions plays a vital role in determining the answers given by the respondent. So the keyword is in your precise word in the wording, wording to find or to state or to make a statement or questions in a questionnaire. And seemingly small changes in wording can cause large differences in responses. So when you make a kinds of small changing or small changes in your wording will influence the answers of the respondents. And sometimes there are heavy loaded with emotional charged words, so you can avoid these kinds of things. Later on, we talk about the question, what kinds of questions should you take or you use in your questionnaires. But this is only the general principles. Some questions are also simple questions, and difficult to understand. It is very simple. Sometimes your question could be very simple, but it is difficult to understand for the respondent. So just see these principles before you write down the questions or the question in your questionnaires. And making question in a social context is very important because it is dealing with people. So you have to see the respondents as a people, not as as your suspect person, something like that. So first one is when you see you view respondents, the way you view respondents, I think it is viewing the respondents as the volunteer conversationalist, as your volunteer, not your witness in court, something like witnesses in court, something people like that. No, but the respondents under your under your study is she or he or they have no compulsion to answer the question. No compulsion. They are not compelled to. They are not forced to answer the question. They are volunteers. So that's why there are something which is sometimes sensitive sensitive questions. You have to see this as some quite problem for you if you have these questions. For example, sometimes researchers worry about asking questions on topics that may be threatening or embarrassing to respondents. So such kinds of things you have to think of or before writing down your questionnaires. Dealing with the social desirability bias. Yeah. Social desirability bias is a significant problem in a survey research. So this is especially the case when question deal with either desirable or socially desirable behavior or attitudes. So if the respondents have acted in ways or have attitudes in that they feel are not the social desirable ones, then they are placed in a dilemma. I think this could be a problem for you. And the next one is what's informed consent. Informed consent, informed consent is kinds of potential things that you have to make permission to the respondents to do the research. So it kinds of giving write down agreement of the respondents to do to fill in your questionnaire. I think this is called informed consent. So it implies that potential respondents should be given sufficient information about what they are actually being asked and how their responses will be used. So it will be clear that these kinds of respondents are the respondents that you need, right? Something like that. So, and the last is helping guarantee anonymity. So you have to raise as kinds of you have to hide the identities of the respondents, because sometimes it make kinds of or it raise the suspicions of respondent to do something not quite well when the respondent is or are feeling unsafe when they are doing your questionnaire. I think, well, there are kinds of questions that you have to see. First question is asking, this is not the question, but yeah, the question, the kinds of questions. Yeah, the first one is asking non-threatening question about behavior. I think sometimes you have to see what kind of questions are there, threatening or non-threatening. If it is a threatening question, then you have to see again the principles, the way how to to ask the threatening question to the respondents, and asking question about behavioral intentions or attitudes. You can also have such kinds of questions. You can also have open-ended and close-ended questions. Usually for open-ended is used by the qualitative researchers. For quantitative researchers, it would be close-ended questions. Question that measure knowledge is this quite important. This is quite important because you have to see if your question is measuring knowledge. You have to be very, very careful in this case, because sometimes knowledge can be measured by asking the question, but sometimes not, right? Cannot be used for these kinds of things. And evaluate performance, it will be the same thing. To evaluate performance, I think sometimes it could be used for question in a questionnaire, but sometimes it's not. Psychographic questions, that's about the psychographic, I think, and the standard demographic question about the demographic questions. The next one is I'd like to tell you about some questions asked by researchers when a researcher, when she or he makes a question in a questionnaire. So there are 9 points that you have to pay attention. The first one is what questions should I ask? Usually, this is very very important things that you have to ask when you start writing questions in a questionnaire. So the question of how am I going to use this information? This is very important starting point to answer these questions. I think how important your question will be in your research. So just look at again your data. Look at again your research questions. Look at again the informations that you need in this in the research. Second question is are there words that I should avoid using? Something like several words which mean many things, something like unclear word in this case. For example, the words usually, often, sometimes, occasionally, seldom, rarely. Usually those kinds of words are used for the options of answer, but you cannot put it in as your question in this case. So these words have highly variable meaning. So the meaning sometimes can be many, right? Many, most, numerous, and so on. That's also, I mean, those words are also the unclear word. Unclear in this case, what I mean is that this word doesn't point out clear objects, right? So the object is not clear for the word many. How many? Most? How many? How high, and so on, numerous, and so on. So it's not clear for the research. Or other words like a small number of, or not very many of, almost none, and so on. I think those words are quite unclear for the research, so don't use this kinds of thing. Other things that I would like to add is for words which I mean, something like a word like and, or, if, not, also words that you have to avoid in what is it, making wordings in a questionnaire. Next, the next point is what makes a good questions. I think this is usually it is very important to ask question of a good question. What kinds of good questions for the questionnaire? So a good question asks for only one answer on one dimension. So you have to avoid double barrel questions. Like, for example, like what is it? If you want to ask two questions in one, or two dimensions in one question, for example, this is called double barrel questions. This question, I think, is not good for questionnaire, because the respondents will be confused of that questions. Usually, this question is or includes the and or, yeah, something like, are you students or teachers, or something like that, or are you watching video of English video, or listening to the tape recorder, something like this. So the students or the respondents will be confused of choosing. So avoid these kinds of words. Good question can accommodate all possible answers. Yeah, something like all possible answers. I think multiple choice question do not accommodate all possible answer responses, can confuse and frustrate the respondents, I think. So when you have a multiple choice answers, I mean, the question should be given many choices, then you have to put all possible answer in the choices. Next, good question has mutual exclusive options. Yeah, what is meant by mutually exclusive options? Sometimes the question should not leave ambiguity in the mind of the respondents. For example, if you ask question like this, where did you learn English? And then you give the answer, at school, at home, and in campus. So when the respondents are students of university, then this question will be confusing because school and campus are different places, right? Good question also produces variability in respondents. So just see the variability of the response. I mean, response. Yeah, there are several response. Good question also follows comfortably from the previous. I mean, they are interrelated. So it means that the first question and the second question and the previous question should be still in one particular topic. The next question or the next one is the next points. I mean, when should I ask ranking questions? I think usually when you want to give the ranking questions, I think it is feasible to have people rank either the 3 most favorite items or the 3 least favorite items. I think just put the rank in the very the most, I mean, the most powerful items or the least powerful item. Just look at this one, for example. If you have a color, you ask color, then you have to see that the sequence of putting the color is like that. The next one is, how should I order my categories in response or responses? I think usually when response categories represent a progressions between a lower level of response and higher level one, I think it is usually better to list responses from the lower level to the higher level, or from left to right, and so on. So I think it is clear for the category. You usually use category and based on the the substance of the questions. So next, how many response categories should I have? No more than necessary. See the substance of the questions, and sometimes some questions need yes or no question, or sometimes some other questions need the skill answer. How many answer options do you have? It depends very much on the the substance of your questions, I think. Next, number 7, what about open-ended question? As I told you earlier, that open-ended is for usually for qualitative researchers. So I think it is sometimes it is not useful in quantitative research. So you just avoid this one, because open-ended question is sometimes wasted, right? So because it is very difficult to analyze later on. The next one is how should the questions be ordered? So ordering the questions, I think, needs something like whether the question is it depends very much on the on the substance of the question. Also, I think start, for example, from the fact-based question, then go to the opinion questions, begin with the interesting and non-threatening questions, and so on. So this is the way you make order. I think just see again your issues, see again your data, your research question, and so on. So to find out to make sure your substance in the questions. And finally, we have do I know my question is complete? So to make sure that your question in a questionnaire is complete or not. So you put all questions or not. I think you need a kinds of pilot project, something like making a pre-test, pre-test your question with small groups of colleagues or a small group of students, or the subject, the subjects or the respondents who are out of the samples. I mean, just take some the respondents who have similar levels with or similar conditions with the samples later on. So I think it is a kind of just like try out in the test. So just make this kinds of questionnaire clear later on, whether you put all the aspects of the questions or you still need some more questions. I think you will see later on after you gather the data from the pre-test in this case. Well, I think that's all, students, for this meeting. I wish we will meet again in the next meeting. Thank you. See you next week. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning.